You seem to have left out whether or not you had any experience as a member of a team.
You know, I feel like I'm wasting the good stuff here. Is the man not going to be joining us?
The man?
Yeah, I should save this if he's going to.
He doesn't do this kind of thing anymore.
Cameos?
Meetings.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. Marvel just revealed a much bigger Iron Man deleted scene with Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man in Deadpool during the movie, so we'll break it all down. It also involves all the original 6 Avengers coming back too. I've already covered some of the deleted scenes, but because the movie is so big, there were so many ideas that they tried to cram into it. You have to imagine that there's like a billion deleted scenes and concepts that didn't wind up making the final cut. So if you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get everything, because it seems like they're releasing new information about these deleted scenes every single day. So as I suspected earlier, they claimed that Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man was meant to show up when Deadpool comes to try out for the Avengers with Happy Hogan in the room. The way that the Marvel people and the writers on the Deadpool and Wolverine movie talk about it, the Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man cameo scene would have come at the beginning of the movie with Happy Hogan in the room interviewing Deadpool for the Avengers. It would have been similar to the version that we saw in the trailer, but obviously they have a joke about him not doing cameos anymore because they didn't wind up putting that in the final cut. This is actually what the writers said about how the scene went down and what happened, because Robert Downey Jr. was actually working with them on the movie when they were writing this into the movie. They say Ryan Reynolds read the scene with both of them, with Happy Hogan and Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man. So in the hopes we could get Downey, but he also wanted Favreau because they're great combo and they're all great in the scene together. He's talking about Ryan Reynolds also wanted Happy Hogan in the scene. So initially it was meant to be a Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man scene in Deadpool by themselves. Then they say, these are the writers of Deadpool and Wolverine, they say behind the scenes, they didn't know about the Doctor Doom of it all, with Robert Downey Jr. signing a contract to come back in Avengers 5 Doomsday and Avengers 6 Secret Wars as a version of Doctor Doom.
I give you credit for just outright asking the question. And I'll give myself credit for trying to evade it and avoid it entirely.
This should give you an idea for the level of secrecy that goes on at Marvel behind the scenes. They didn't even bother to tell the writers of Deadpool and Wolverine, the people that were making it, Ryan Reynolds included, that Robert Downey Jr. was going to come back as a version of Doctor Doom. They go on to say, and there's no way that he was going to do both Doctor Doom and then also do the cameo as his version of Iron Man before 2018, when he was still alive, before the events of Avengers Infinity War. But they say no one says no to Ryan Reynolds. He's a master at getting people to cameo in his movie, as you saw in the theatrical cut. They say Ryan gave Robert Downey Jr. the hard press. They wrote the scenes with Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man and his Deadpool. They read the scenes, but what we didn't know behind the scenes is this whole Doctor Doom thing. Then they say Downey passed on the cameo eventually. It's the only no we've ever gotten, like the only no that Ryan Reynolds has ever gotten to asking for a cameo scene. Then they say, but at the same time, I think Marvel had this ace in their hole, which is he's about to come back as this different character. So to have him be Tony Stark, the 616 version of Iron Man that died during Endgame, knowing that Doctor Doom was coming on the heels of that, it just didn't make sense. So I talked about this in my previous deleted scenes video, but one of the big reasons why Robert Downey Jr. said no, because he would have been down to do it, even though they joke in the theatrical cut that he doesn't do cameos anymore. Marvel didn't want to undercut his return as Doctor Doom when you see him on screen for the first time. It's supposed to be a big shocking reveal like, oh my god, it's Doctor Doom, and it's Robert Downey Jr. What's going on here? And there would have been mass confusion from a bunch of casual fans that aren't into the whole multiverse of it all. During the movie, Deadpool even clowns on the multiverse movies. But part of the idea in the scene that they actually wrote for that is that his Iron Man would have done essentially the same thing, like he would have rejected Deadpool for the Avengers, like, you're not Avengers material, bud. So you just have to imagine all the masturbating jokes with Robert Downey Jr. trying to keep a straight face through that.
But I can assure you that
I'm sorry, what was that?
when you get those toy Hulk hands, you brace yourself and you ravage the midsection.
I get it. Okay,
Yeah,
thank
Then in another deleted scene, alternate version of this scene where Deadpool tries out for the Avengers, their other idea was to actually have all the original 6 Avengers come back cameo scene and be here for Deadpool's interview when he's trying out for the Avengers. They would have also rejected him. Then, like, he dresses down Happy Hogan, making fun of him for not having superpowers. Like, what is your superpower? Parallel parking? Oh, you're also part of the Avengers too? Well, I'm Avengers adjacent. Great moment in the final cut of the movie. But in their alternate version of this, it would have been the original 6 Avengers doing this to him. Then he would have dressed each of them down. So you remember later in the movie when he meets the Resistance group and he sees Channing Tatum's Gambit, he says he looks like the superhero version of Hawkeye. You have to imagine Deadpool making fun of all the 6 original Avengers, especially the ones that didn't have special powers. He also makes fun of Thor throughout the movie too, but for different reasons because of that Thor scene. Like, why is Thor crying? What's going on here?
And what is that? Is that Thor? Why is Thor crying? Why was Thor crying?
Why was Thor crying?
Chris Hemsworth also got in on that joke too. He said, I can keep secrets. Ryan Reynolds then doubled down on the joke, like, what are you talking about? You're from Australia, you can't keep secrets. For those of you wondering, the reason why Thor was crying, cradling Deadpool's dying body like he was actually dying, his healing factor wasn't going to save him. When Paradox says that's something from a potential future of his, like, oh, we're getting ahead of ourselves, don't show him that, that's something from the future, that's meant to be more of an Avengers 6 Secret Wars kind of joke. Like, Deadpool will eventually fight with a version of the Avengers. There'll be a lot more variants because we're talking about Secret Wars here. Imagine a much bigger version of Deadpool and Wolverine where a lot of those other original actors come back to play their characters from the Fox Marvel Universe and the other non-MCU Marvel movies. At the end of the theatrical cut of Deadpool and Wolverine, they go back to his original X-Men universe, so the idea is that by the time Secret Wars comes along, they'll have to find another way for him to cross over into the MCU again. He still had that TemPad at the end of the movie, so that's actually a pretty easy way for him to jump around in universes, but I don't know if the TVA would actually let him keep that. They'd probably yoink that from him. He even said he destroyed Cable's time travel device after he tried out for the Avengers and was rejected. But one of the other jokes here with the Thor scene, and this sort of gets into some of the deleted scenes, this is one of the alternate versions of the movie that he pitched to Kevin Feige before he eventually said yes, and we saw the version that we saw on screen. One of the versions of Deadpool and Wolverine was actually going to be them redoing the events of a lot of MCU Marvel movies and just inserting Deadpool into key scenes. So, for instance, a lot of people theorized that Deadpool and Wolverine would show up during the Avengers Endgame final battle, and they'd have a bunch of jokes about that. During the whole Chris Evans, Johnny Storm, Human Torch cameo, he even says Avengers Assemble as he's saying Flame On. So, like, they were already playing the Avengers music and redoing a version of that Avengers Assemble moment. Turns out they were actually going to do a much bigger version of that in the movie, but I think they felt like that would be kind of derivative and they wanted a more original plot. Like, there are a lot of fan edits out there of Deadpool in the other Avengers movies. It would have been just like a shinier, more HD version of that, but I still kind of think they actually included the scene of Thor cradling Deadpool, and it was just a scene from Thor the Dark World, and they just CG'd Deadpool in where Loki was, dying in his arms. Just because Thor was wearing an old version of his costume from that movie. If you were a big fan of the Hulk vs. Wolverine cameo scene that they had earlier in the movie with him wearing the John Byrne costume and getting ready to fight the Hulk, Bruce Banner's version of the Hulk from the MCU, supposedly there's talk of them actually doing that as a much bigger movie, like a Hulk vs. Wolverine movie. I don't know what kind of legal problems that they would get into and what they would have to make the title, because I think part of the idea with Universal, their problem with releasing a Hulk solo movie, is that Marvel can do whatever they want to with the Hulk inside an actual movie, but I don't think they're allowed to put Hulk in the actual title of any of the movies that they put him in. I think that's where the line is drawn, so instead of calling the movie Hulk vs. Wolverine, they'd have to come up with some other title. Even if they wind up doing a full movie like that, paying off that Easter egg, it'd probably be a long ways off, so hopefully they can figure out the rights issue with Universal at some point, because it also sounds like they want to do a World War Hulk kind of movie too at some point in the future. There's already a ton of Hulk-related stuff happening in Captain America Brave New World, like all the Red Hulk, the leader coming back, even his version of Betty Ross is coming back in that movie. For a lot of you asking why there weren't more Spider-Man references or cameos in the movie, like why didn't we actually see a version of Spider-Man like Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield in the film?
Stop it.
The closest we got was him doing the thwip Spider-Man motion inside the car, annoying Wolverine. My assumption when it comes to that is that they just couldn't reach a deal with Sony about use of the Spider-Man characters, because even though they share the MCU version of Spider-Man, technically they share Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man 2 as part of that, but I think they're meant to be more of a special thing, and it probably turned into a similar situation with Robert Downey Jr. coming back as his Dr. Doom in Avengers 5, Doomsday, and Secret Wars, with them also wanting to bring back Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield during Secret Wars at some point. And if they would have appeared during Deadpool and Wolverine, it would have been just super jokey, kind of undercutting that. Supposedly, Joe's Diner was actually supposed to be the diner from Spider-Man 2 that Mr. Aziz owned, the pizza place that he was selling pizza out of, but for some reason that also got changed to just a generic diner. My assumption is at some point they had it written as a Spider-Man 2 diner, like a big Spider-Man 2 reference, and then when they decided to back off on the Spider-Man references, they probably just decided to make it more generic. Maybe Sony said no, maybe they're just saving up for more Secret Wars, bigger stuff. The closest we actually got to a Spider-Man cameo scene is actually Harry Holland, Tom Holland's brother in real life. He was one of the Deadpool variants in the Deadpool Corps at the end of the movie. Don't feel bad if you didn't notice him when they were fighting, just because the costume that he was wearing that was covering his face was a generic copy of the original Deadpool costume. Even funnier, Ryan Reynolds also apparently didn't know that he was in the movie until they revealed it after the fact. Like, he took a picture behind the scenes with his mask off. Like, wait a minute, how am I just finding out that Harry Holland, Tom Holland's brother, was in this movie? My guess is that he probably just doesn't know Harry Holland, so when he was talking to him on set, or if he was talking behind the scenes, he didn't realize who it was. Like, oh, you're just like a random extra that's wearing this costume. The other big thing that's happened since the movie has come out, this is like a brand new thing that they just announced, is that Channing Tatum said that because of the success of his cameo, like because people went so crazy and the movie is doing so well, it's actually revived his Gambit movie at Marvel. So there's actually a chance that Channing Tatum might get to make that Gambit movie.
I'm about to make a name for myself here.
Who is your dialect coach? The Minions?
He actually said that he's in talks with Marvel legit about actually doing that movie finally, but it's in Kevin Feige and Bob Iger's hands. Bob Iger is the CEO of Disney, so when they spend hundreds of millions of dollars, he also has to sign on the dotted line with Kevin Feige. Like, okay, we will spend $200 million on this movie. Fun fact too, Robert Downey Jr. coming back as a version of Dr. Doom. We've been talking about that for a while now since they announced it, but Bob Iger also has to sign off on him coming back. Like, Kevin Feige can't just say, hey, why don't you come back for this? We'll pay you X amount of dollars. All because Robert Downey Jr.'s contract is for so much money, so many bags of money, more money than he'll ever be able to spend in his entire life. I talked about this in a previous video, but reportedly he's getting about $80 to $85 million for Avengers 5 Doomsday in the same $80 to $85 million for Avengers 6 Secret Wars. But that's supposed to be it. Like, he's not going to stick around as Dr. Doom in the MCU after Secret Wars. So I think part of the idea is they're giving him so much money that all the Disney executives, like the evil empire, basically had to sign off on all these big payments that they're sending him. There are a couple other bits of information that they've revealed in the last week since the movie's actually been out for a little while now, and it has to do with Chris Evans' cameo scene as Human Torch Johnny Storm. Loved all the classic Fantastic Four references there, especially before we see the more like legit big action version of the new Fantastic Four movie in the MCU. But apparently some of the conditions of Chris Evans coming back, like he actually said he would do it, but ... only if a couple things happen. One was that he got to speak this entire foul-mouthed dialogue that you see in the post-credit scene. He didn't want Ryan Reynolds to tone it down. Like, he wanted it to sound like the foulest thing you've ever heard come out of his mouth, and it was fantastic in the actual movie. But he also said that that scene had to stay in the actual movie, so they always wanted that Chris Evans Human Torch, like foul-mouthed scene of him getting caught on camera to be the post-credit scene. So right before they actually filmed the scene, like it happened pretty quickly, Ryan Reynolds wrote the actual dialogue. So the whole speech that Chris Evans recites where he's bad-mouthing Cassandra Nova, Ryan Reynolds wrote at the very last minute. Like, that's how good of a writer he is for this kind of dialogue and these kind of jokes. But if there's any other deleted scenes or Easter eggs or references that you spotted in the movie that I haven't talked about in my last couple of deleted scenes videos, write them below in the comments. As of me posting this video, D23 has started and Marvel's supposed to release a couple big trailers this weekend. We might get our first trailer for Daredevil Born Again. Whatever they wind up releasing, of course I will do videos for it. I think there's going to be some Star Wars trailers too. There's a bunch of other big stuff coming up. Everyone click here for my Fantastic Four Comic-Con trailer video, and click here to learn about some of the other deleted scenes in alternate endings in Deadpool and Wolverine. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.